This is CBC Vancouver News.
My heart is filled with joy and warmth.
Get that totem pole home.
More than a century after it was taken from a BC First Nation, a totem pole is going back to its people. A Vancouver police officer is found guilty of assault for tasering a black man after he was stopped and arrested for jaywalking almost 5 years ago. Plus, more money to help Vancouver's Chinatown. Businesses say it's a start.
There's still people living on the streets that we really need help with.
Helping the legacy businesses or even opening up new shops.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Tears of joy and relief flowed in Victoria this morning as a totem pole belonging to a BC First Nation begins its long journey home. It was taken from the Newhawk Nation more than a century ago and housed at the Royal BC Museum. As Susanna Da Silva shows us, its repatriation is an important step in reconciliation.
Seeing this comes with all the emotions of greeting a long-lost loved one for Hereditary Chief Nxieltwa.
I just don't know how to put it right now, but my grandfather's coming home.
Carved by Chief Nxieltwa's great-grandfather in the mid-1800s, taken from the community more than 100 years ago and placed in the Royal BC Museum when Indigenous traditions had been banned and the community had been decimated by disease.
This was taken during the time of smallpox. That's the hardest part.
The community first asked for it back in 2019, even filing a lawsuit for it. The museum acknowledges it has been a long time, but also says it was a complicated process and one of many to come.
We have hundreds of thousands of pieces that need to be returned or that could be returned. We have 203 First Nations in BC that could potentially ask for something to be returned.
It's helping our young people realize, what the strength of our community was.
But for today, with the official paperwork in order, this was a celebration for the Newhawk people.
My heart is filled with joy and warmth and just feels so good. I could feel his spirit.
We live really far away from Bellacoola, so it's nice having things like this to kind of remember.
Museums are like residential schools to us, and we are trying our best to absorb that. And just happy that my grandfather came through me to make this day happen. And he's here.
After 2 days of ceremony here, the totem will make the 1,000-kilometer trip back home. Susanna Da Silva, CBC News, Victoria.
Several people gathered on a narrow bridge sidewalk to remember a man shot and killed by Vancouver police last week. A small vigil was held on the north end of the Granville Bridge for the man gunned down by officers on Thursday. The VPD says officers responded to a man acting erratically on the bridge. They say an altercation took place. Officers believed he had access to a weapon, and they opened fire. Some on the bridge tonight wonder if officers had another option beyond lethal force.
I think that there's a lot of interventions and things that can be done that don't necessarily need violence associated, and that either way, I don't think that death is the answer.
The Independent Investigations Office is now involved. Its director says he's concerned the language police used could impact witnesses and suggest a decision about what happened has already been made. A Vancouver police officer, meanwhile, has been found guilty of assault with a weapon during an arrest several years ago. Constable Jared Sadu was convicted today in provincial court. The incident, caught on video, at least a portion of it, shows officers arresting Jameel Moore Williams on the Granville Strip. The video shows him being forced to the ground and tasered repeatedly. At the time, police issued him a ticket for jaywalking and obstruction of justice. Those charges have since been stayed. Moore Williams says he was targeted because of his race. He now has an ongoing civil suit against the city. A freelance photojournalist arrested at an anti-pipeline protest in northern BC is now suing the RCMP. Amber Bracken and editorial leaders from the Narwhal are starting legal proceedings against the Mounties for wrongful arrest, wrongful detention, and violation of charter rights. Bracken says she felt kidnapped when she was arrested in November 2021 alongside several other people opposed to the Coastal GasLink pipeline. Police had been looking to enforce an injunction allowing pipeline construction to go ahead. Members of the Wet'suwet'en established the resistance camp in September 2021, stopping plans to drill a tunnel under the Morris River. Newly obtained data shows Indigenous and Black people have more interactions with police in BC, which advocates say underscores the prevalence of systemic racism in policing. General occurrence reports filed by BC's municipal police departments from 2016 to 2021, including the Surrey Police Service, show that over a 6-year period, Black and Indigenous people had disproportionately high numbers of police calls made against them. They also had more charges recommended against them.
As a racialized person that spends a lot of time connecting with folks who have had experiences with the police, mostly negative experiences, this information is not a surprise to me. To see it codified, see it in concrete terms, just lets me know that our experience is not invalid.
Advocates say the data shows the impact of policing on particular marginalized communities. In Vancouver, Indigenous people were 6 times more likely than a white person to have police called to them. And they talk about how funding should be reallocated to community-driven causes. The data covers thousands of police interactions across the province, including traffic calls, dealing with youth under 18, and street checks. Business owners are trying to bring life back to Vancouver's Chinatown. Ottawa has now approved new funding to revitalize the historic area, pumping almost $2 million into the community. As the CBC's Zara Premji explains, the businesses in Chinatown say it's a start.
From fragrant and delicious dumplings to thick and juicy meat and plenty more, legacy businesses in Vancouver's Chinatown have been feeding community and creating connections for decades. But between the pandemic, increased homelessness surrounding the area, and increased vandalism, business owners fear Chinatown will only continue to fall apart.
We are struggling and we are fighting for our lives.
And a new injection of $1.8 million from the federal government is being seen as a turning point. It promises the money will go towards
new energy efficient lighting, upgraded storefront windows and doors, new signage, awnings, planters, flower boxes, paintings, and refurbished bricks and tiles, and much more.
That's on top of what the City of Vancouver fronted last month, nearly $1 million to improve safety and reduce vandalism. But businesses say more needs to be done to help surrounding communities.
I understand the direction they're going. It's just not enough for us. We really need a lot more support at this point. I mean, there's still people living on the streets that we really need help with.
His sentiments echoed by Joey Wong, who took over his family business that's been around for more than 50 years.
It's a way to start, but we do need a lot more help in, say helping the legacy businesses or even opening up new shops in Chinatown.
While thankful for this new money, members of the Chinatown community don't want to be forgotten.
Please keep us at your priority list. Please keep us, at your purview, and we need everything.
And they say this is a good start that they hope will be just the beginning of their neighborhood's revival. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
The long-running debate over bike lanes in Stanley Park will continue for another year. Tonight, the Vancouver Park Board voted in favor of getting rid of the temporary lane, but also to begin a new round of consultation for a permanent one.
This is a difficult decision. I know there's a lot of emotions running very high, both around this table and in the public. And I recognize that many people on either side, no matter what decision we come to tonight, are not going to be happy.
Commissioners voted 6-1, deciding to remove most of the bike lane and return to pre-pandemic traffic flows around the entire park. It was one of 3 options staff put forward as a solution to the controversy that's engulfed the park board since the lane was created in 2020. City staff will continue to study traffic patterns and plan to produce a new proposal on a separated lane by November. Some peer support services across BC will be getting part of a $16 million funding injection from the province. The money will go to various Foundry locations. The organization offers access to supports for young people aged 12 to 24 in areas like mental health and peer supports. With the shortage of healthcare and social services workers, the province hopes the new funding will allow for the hiring of young people in the peer support field.
This funding today will help increase that reach to more young people. The Youth Peer Support Worker Program also creates career entry points for youth facing barriers to employment. Removing barriers to employment, especially for people facing multiple barriers, is one of my key priorities as Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction.
Malcolmson says as many as 76 new full-time peer support workers could be hired with the money. There are about 20 part-time workers at Foundry Centres across BC right now. It is no secret the ongoing healthcare crisis has doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers burnt out and is leading to longer wait times for patients. To help ease that burden, healthcare advocates are urging the province to hire more physician assistants. But as Yasmin Gandam reports, that's not allowed here.
Work with physicians to just kind of be a force multiplier for them.
Gabriel Damone is originally from BC, but is now working as a physician assistant with the Canadian Armed Forces, based out of Halifax. His role is to see patients deal with common ailments, allowing doctors to have more time to assist more people.
You know, when there's a shortage of physicians, to be able to use somebody like a PA as not a stopgap, but just an adjunct would be very helpful.
Damone wants to return to work in British Columbia, but in this province, physician assistants are not allowed to operate or be employed by the healthcare system.
We haven't really been given an answer or a straight answer as to why.
What we need are better teams, better healthcare teams, and physician assistants can definitely be a good part of that.
Other provinces and the Canadian military use physician assistants. Recently, a Port Hardy doctor called out the province for not making them an option.
I am advocating for physician assistants because I have only one set of hands.
Dr. Notaros is temporarily suspended from working in the emergency room after Island Health says it received complaints about the quality of his care. Green Party leader Sonia Furstano says those already working in the healthcare system need support so they can better help the many British Columbians without adequate care.
We need to focus on the health and well-being of British Columbians, and to achieve that, we need to ensure that the health and well-being of doctors and healthcare professionals is also being taken care of.
She'd like the health minister to add other layers of support, like physician's assistants. Her concern echoed by the director for the Canadian Association of Physician Assistants.
Physicians supervise PAs and delegate responsibilities to us so that they can see more patients and spend more time seeing critical patients.
While the Ministry of Health hasn't responded to CBC's questions on this recent push for PAs, in December they said the ministry continues to assess the option of physician assistants. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
If you're in the mood for a bit of a party, but not a late night, a BC group may be the thing you need or want. Home by Midnight is making it easier to do just that, opening their doors at dusk and sending dancers home before the bell tolls 12. The CBC's Benit Brach gives us a look.
It may seem like any late night party, from the DJ, bright lights to the booze, but all these guests share a goal.
A common denominator is that desire to be home early.
This is Home by Midnight, a group dedicated to parents and those who say they love to dance, hate clubbing, and need to be up at a reasonable hour.
So you can get home and get in bed by midnight. And then get up in the morning and be with your kids or take them to soccer practice or just, go about your day.
While in many clubs, the party starts late, here the beats are bumping, nice and early. These moms have waited months for a night like this.
We like to have fun, but we're all parents of children that are in elementary school, and we need to be home by midnight.
We really wanted to dance, but I don't know where we could go where we wouldn't feel like we're 1,000 years old.
Parents are letting loose, living their best life for the night, joining their closest friends.
Yeah, well, often, You get these opportunities at limited events like weddings, and so you got to wait for a wedding before you get to go dancing.
Similar parties are also being hosted in the U.S. This New York Times article mentions Before Midnight, another event for music fans who are juggling children and careers. Meanwhile, this group started in 2018, and after taking a break during the pandemic, the dance shoes are back on, with parties every other month, and the guest list keeps growing.
We've sold out every night we've done this.
Their hope is to bring the party to other parts of the province. And while some of these parents are ready to call it a night, these party goers in the Granville Entertainment District are just beginning. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
Get that totem pole home.
One totem pole returned to a BC First Nation, and the countless other items still waiting to be repatriated. More on the Newhawk Nation's calls for action after the break. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. Some call themselves sneakerheads, and today the world of sneakers is a multi-million-dollar scene. In Edmonton, that culture has been growing for years, but TikTok, Instagram, and e-commerce have opened the community to a whole new generation of collectors.
My name is Camille, and I am shooting a really fun segment here with CBC. They're in my house, they're taking their videos, they're shining their cameras and their lights, and as you can see, it's going to involve sneakers.
Probably had about 1,400 pairs.
These are the Jay-Z Rockefeller sneakers.
It's usually black, but yeah, the heat triggers it. Yeah, between 6,000 and 8,000, I guess, US. It's definitely out of my price range.
Every shoe has a story and a history behind it.
It probably all started with hip-hop culture. Run DMC and the Adidas Shelto, you know, Air Jordan, Michael Jordan with the Jordan 1. Like, I collected pretty much like all shoes. Anything that would tickle my fancy, I would buy. And whenever I travel, when I was in Detroit, go sneaker shop in New York, sneaker shop. See, when I was buying shoes, though, there wasn't a term sneakerhead. I was just doing it because I liked shoes. When Foosh started in 1999, there were shops here in Edmonton where you can buy like cool Nikes and stuff, but I just kind of wanted to bring my little flavor into the city. I think the Tiffany Dunks would be the most expensive pair that I have. A lot of the companies that we work with, they have specific dates on when shoes should drop. We would then do like a drop in store, first come, first serve.
People would be waiting outside at the stores, sometimes in minus 30 weather. Sometimes they would line up the night before and be lined up overnight, and that's how they got to meet the people that they talked to online.
It's definitely grown massively, and I think it's shown in the number of stores that have opened in Edmonton that focus on either sneakers specifically or cultures adjacent to them.
Sneakerhead check. An underrated conversation starter is what's on your feet. Here we have the Shadow Satin Jordan 1. These are a grail. These were designed by a woman of color, a black girl. And I think that's why it's such a significant shoe in my collection. Because I'm a woman, I can wear heels, no problem. I can wear a dress, no problem. But I can also rock a fresh pair of kicks.
I think there's always going to be a need for sneakers, but I think there's different outlets on how to access information on sneakers now that they have Instagram. So it's more so like a niche culture, but now it's become more mainstream.
With sneakers being so fire right now, it's just gonna keep on skyrocketing. It's cool to see from when I started to where it is now. It's a good way to kind of express your individuality. It's nice just to have a sneaker that nobody else has.
When I first started collecting, I didn't really see many women. I honestly think women are taking over, and you're gonna see more women designing kicks for sure. And I love it.
Back to our top story now. The totem pole taken from a BC First Nation more than 100 years ago is being returned starting today. The Snukyeltwa totem pole is now headed back to its home near Bella Coola. This is just the start, though. Chief Derek Snow and the Newhawk Nation are now trying to get back other artifacts of theirs at the Royal BC Museum, as promised by the BC government. Arlene Young caught up with him to talk more about it.
Keep your promise.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
We've got a lot of work to do.
There's many more things that are in storage. There's many more things in the museum that have to go back to our people.
Do you feel like they kept their promise?
I shook this guy's hand and I said, there's something you got to do is keep your promise. Then you won't have too much trouble in Parliament.
Yes, and not as many lawsuits coming their way. I wanted to ask you, I was hoping you could help me understand. I know you've said before that you felt like the pole was stolen, but at the same time, you thank the museum for taking care of it. You don't feel anger or resentment? Like, where's that gratitude coming from?
Even though we went through so much trouble, why are we doing it this way? If you want something, and you have to fight and battle for it, and the spirit that you put in the totem pole, if you put that bad spirit in that totem pole, it's not going to come back. If I put my fist up or took a gun out, that totem pole wouldn't come back. We wanted to do it in a nice, respectful way. We left it open all the time for working it out of court. We didn't want to go through that battle in the courts.
But at the end of the day, it was about making sure there was that good energy.
Get that totem pole home.
Right. Do what it takes.
Do what it takes to get that totem pole home.
But approach it from a positive way at the end.
And then it goes back to, well, what's next? And that's basically what I've been taught along the way, to do it this way.
There's a live shot of the Port of Vancouver. W for windy, very blustery across the south coast today. Several thousand people without power at last check. Johanna will have your BC-wide forecast coming up.
Getting a cab on a Vancouver street is not that easy. In fact, it's legally impossible. A city bylaw doesn't allow you to hail a taxi. You have to go to a cab stand or phone one like I did today. Take me to the main entrance to Expo, please.
Yes, sir.
In the jargon of the specialist, taxis are called paratransit vehicles. But to the hundreds of Vancouver passengers who use them each day, they are plain taxi or cab. So it's not surprising that, like all modern cities, Vancouver depends on taxis. All the more so when Expo begins. Drivers like George Theodoropoulos, who has driven cab for 11 years, are counting on Expo for their biggest year yet.
As a driver, do you think that this Expo year will be the biggest for you?
I sure hope so. Should be. Business would be, but if you work the system properly, try to avoid the traffic jams which are going to be around, it should be a very good year.
George didn't mention it, but taxi passengers will get a break during Expo too. Vancouver's licensed cabs will not be raising their rates during the fair. Computer dispatching of cabs brought in by two companies to speed up service has arrived. And by the time Expo begins, the gremlins should be cleared from the new system. To make it easier for the visitors to get a cab, the city will designate 60 new taxi spaces at Expo's 3 entrances. And Expo visitors will soon discover what Vancouverites have known for years: that taxis are a necessary and popular link in the city's transportation system.
Vancouverites can manage with the city's odd taxi rules. Out-of-towners have to learn the hard way. Waiting for another taxi at the entrance to Expo 86 for World Stage 86, I'm Cam Cathcart.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 8th, celebrate International Women's Day with Gloria Makarenko at the West Coast Leafs Equality Breakfast. Get your tickets at westcoastleaf.org. And dance away the winter blues with Corleone at Pop Capella 3 on March 3rd and 4th. Backed by a band of Vancouver's best, the Corleone Ensemble will take on your favorite hits. Tickets at corleone.org.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast with meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe on what turned out to be a very breezy evening, Joe.
Yeah, Dan, a windy night across the south coast. We've been seeing those gusts steadily increase through the evening hours. Wind warnings in place for Metro Vancouver through parts of the Fraser Valley, Greater Victoria area. This is where we're seeing those winds coming in from the northwest, 70 to 90 kilometers per hour, more like gusts to 100 kilometers per hour for the west coast of Vancouver Island. And then a general special weather statement where we are seeing those gusts on the east side of the island, the Sunshine Coast, upwards of 50 to 70 kilometers per hour, so not quite warning criteria. And earlier this evening, also seeing those really localized pockets of both snow on the island, sort of Malahat Highway northward, and some sort of pockets of hail with this instability. I've actually left what we call the isobars on our forecast map, these white lines. These are lines of equal pressure, and the tighter they are together, the stronger the wind. So this little low pressure system sort of ended up dragging down winds from our upper levels where they are usually higher. And it's sort of the difference between this low pressure and a little high pressure off the coast. They were so tightly packed together. You can see how close those lines are, which is why we're getting those windy conditions easing quite quickly as we head into Tuesday, as well as clearing, looking like a nice but cold Tuesday across the south coast. And I should mention those snowfall warnings have also ended for the Coquihalla, snow finally easing. Next weather maker to slide down across the coast, I think won't quite get to Metro Vancouver until Thursday, so we get a dry start to the week. Temperatures are coming down a little bit as well. We'll notice that on the south coast, our temperatures sort of below seasonal by a couple of degrees for the next couple of days. And you'll really notice tomorrow morning and then again Wednesday morning, those temperatures are below zero for your morning. Showers back Thursday, Friday. I'm being optimistic with that sun on Saturday, but I'll keep you posted. Looks like things clear out on Monday. And we'll keep an eye on a storm for next week. We could, Dan, get one more snowmaker before we close the book on winter.
Okay, thanks, Joe. We're going to end on the water tonight. A pod of southern resident killer whales made an appearance in Burrard Inlet this weekend. And they put on a bit of a show. Stanley Park Ecology Society volunteers were on their way to do a bird survey at Brockton Point when they saw the orcas having a bit of fun under the Lions Gate Bridge. Fisheries and Oceans Canada says it's not unusual to see orcas in and around that area and reminds everyone that there are rules that boaters must follow around the whales. Don't get too close. That's your late news for this Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Good night.